The man who moves a mountain begins by taking away the small stones. This is my choice. I spent too long in a bed, but as always, one step ahead. Like AVFC, I'm prepared as I can be. The next time you'll see me, I'll be an amputee. If you think this is all a bit much, then fair enough. Please get in touch and I'll tell you the story of how my new beginning had made me feel like I'm winning.
Jude Aston is an 18-year-old Aston Villa fan. He's dealt with the challenges of cerebral palsy for as long as he can remember. When developing complications after an operation which saw his right leg fused into an upright position, he made the bold decision to have his leg amputated in the search for a new life of independence. Less than 4 weeks later, he was back at Villa Park to watch his beloved Aston Villa. This is his story.
I've had cerebral palsy all my life since birth. And after an operation in January 2020 to help improve my cerebral palsy, I developed a condition called complex regional pain syndrome. It meant that my leg sort of came folded up towards my chest, became stuck like that for 3 or 4 years. My leg became really sensitive, so like it got to a point where I couldn't even touch any of my leg, and I couldn't have any clothes on my leg. Literally, even the breath of air would cause immense pain on my leg. I'd get burning sensations through it. As part of the complex regional pain, it got unmanageable at home, so I had to go into hospital where they tried to figure out what was wrong with me, basically. Which again, not knowing what's really wrong, and medical doctors going around to you saying you may have this, you may have that, and not actually having an answer was really hard, and at the same time still being in immense pain. Because of my cerebral palsy, I've always been around hospitals, I've always been to medical appointments, they're here, there and everywhere. So for me, I was used to that environment, but I've never been used to being in hospital for 2 to 3 months, a year. You've got to think from the time I went in hospital, which was August, to January of 22, I did not go out of room. Like, I was in the same room. I didn't even remember what the ward looked like or what the outside world looked like, because I was just in there 24/7 in pain. Psychologically, it took a really big hit on me, and I had to have a lot of psychological sessions to help me get through that and sort of figure out what I wanted. I couldn't touch any of my leg at all. Like, you got to think it was stuck in a position where it's quite hard not to touch because of where it was physically. So when I'm doing stuff, it's hard. But yeah, even if you were to touch it, I would have immense pain. So I had to psychologically get myself ready to touch my leg. I mean, that sounds crazy from where I am now, but that's the reality of it. It was trying to work with it to try and get it out of the physical position, because my leg was just in the way. The only thing that was stopping me now was the physical position of my leg, and stopping me from doing day-to-day tasks like sitting in the car, sitting in the chair properly. It really put me like bedbound. My mobility was really bad in terms of what I could move and where I could sit. I couldn't do day-to-day tasks like going to the toilet that everyone takes for granted. It was at that point then, once I'd got my life back on track, I started to go out more. I started to experiment going to Villa games, going out into the community, which I hadn't done for 2 or 3 years, that actually I found that how much the position of my leg really hindered my life. Medical professionals in the background were thinking about mentioning the idea of having it amputated. I felt like I'd lost my leg physically. It was no use to me. It wasn't moving. We'd done tons of physio on it, lots and lots of movements, just in lots of professionals, and there was just no movement in it. You go into a surgeon as a 17-year-old and asking them to take your leg off. That's a massive thing. And once the surgeon understood my story and understood that my leg was no use to me, and I felt like I'd lost it, and physically I could not do anything with it, they agreed to amputate my leg through the knee. Don't get me wrong, there was risks with this operation, so there was a big risk that I'd done all that work with the chronic regional pain syndrome and desensitising my leg. There's a big risk that the complex regional pain syndrome could have come back. Now, to me, I had nothing to lose, because although I'd got over the chronic pain, my life was still no good to me. I was stuck in a bed most of the time. I could move little bits in the chair, but if the chronic pain had come back, I'd have worked with it. I got over it once, so in my head, I would have figured out a way to get over it again. My outlook changed on things when the proposition of having my leg amputated came about, because I could see a light at the end of the tunnel. Before all of that, there was nothing for me. There was nothing in front of me, or nothing for my future. Whereas the prospect of having my leg amputated, I could see the benefits straight away. I then moved to an assisted living flat accommodation where I get support 24/7 if I need it, but then I can also be left to my own devices and go to the villa by myself if I need to. So yeah, that's where I'm living at the moment, sort of in a flat, in an apartment, and getting help when I need it. I'm Jude Aston. Welcome to my crib. Want to come in, Dan?
Yes, mate.
Yeah, we'll back up, test my driving skills. So I'm rocking the Matty Cash haircut at the minute, so you know, just got to make sure that's on point. So as you can see, I have to let everyone know I'm a Villa fan as soon as I walk in, so everyone knows what they're walking into. Come into the bathroom. It's accessible for me, so I can use all of it. In terms of wet rooms go, it's pretty cool. Got obviously the handrail, which helps me use the toilet, which this was fitted after my operation. So I can actually use the toilet. I can use the handrail. Good that I can use this as independently as I can, really.
But when you move back to your parents and the house will be modified, you wouldn't be able to do things by yourself?
Yeah, so like all the doors will be electric for me, all of the shower will be voice controlled, so that's on my phone. So yeah, I'll be able to do everything independently. All of the stuff in the house is so I can do it independently. I've got my bedroom, Aston Villa frame shirt from last season that was. The pharmacy that worked on my ward, she saw me one day in a Villa top and she was like, "Oh, you're wearing Villa?" I'm like, yeah. Then the next day she came back with loads of Villa kit, loads of Villa shirts and stuff. And the day after she came back with that. Came back with a signed shirt, had all of the players on, so as you can see it's got the likes of Cameron Archer there, Jacob Ramsey, Matty Target, remember him, he's at Newcastle now. This was pretty cool. Aston Brewery, Emmy Martinez, World Cup winner now, isn't he? So got to stay in its place, hasn't it? Charging bank, ready for an away day. Everything goes on charge for an away day, ready. Providing I don't forget my power bank like I always do. Got the Alexa, which again will help me in my house. See, it's turned on now, I shouldn't have said that. Everything in the house will be controlled by that sort of system, so I'll be able to do stuff independently, like open blinds, doors. So yeah, pretty. I'm looking forward to it because it's pretty advanced technology. It's the first of its kind in the UK, so yeah, we'll see how it turns out.
In my time with Jude, what strikes me most is how strong his mentality is. The way he's so blasé about the whole situation almost comes across like he doesn't understand the magnitude of what he's been through, whilst in fact the opposite is actually true. He knows exactly what he's signed up for and has been prepared for this for a long, long time.
Anyone watching this will be thinking, for an 18-year-old to go through an amputation and decide to go for an amputation is a massive, massive thing. I'm not taking that away from anything that I've been through, but when you're in my position and you can't do the basic day-to-day life things, then the decision was easy for me because I just knew, like I say, that I'd have such an easier life ahead of me. The one thing that I was nervous about, I wasn't nervous about the operation or having the actual amputation. The nervous thing was for me was getting someone to agree to do it. That was the most hardest thing that I was worried about in my head. I'd think about it and I'd talk to mum and dad. I'd be like, what about if they say no? What am I going to say? Or what about if he says this? And you should see the preparation I put in. I remember seeing the surgeon for the first appointment, and literally I had a whole list of three sheets of paper of what I couldn't do and what my leg stopped me from doing because I was that nervous of him saying no that I had to be prepared for every scenario, and that's how much I wanted it. I lost my leg 3 years ago in January 2020 when I had that operation to try and help with my cerebral palsy, and unfortunately I never got it back, but I'd lost it and I'd come to terms with it, and psychologically I was ready. I was ready to go for the next step, and I knew the next step was amputation. I knew that was the right thing for me. There wasn't one time that I was nervous throughout the whole process. You'd think having operations and having a big operation like an amputation, you get nerves, and I'm not just saying this, but honestly throughout the whole process I wasn't nervous, and that was because psychologically up here I'd done so much preparation. I've spoken to psychologists, surgeons, family. They all agreed it was what was best for me in the end. Honestly, it was the only thing I was focusing on, and that was purely because I could see, like I say, the light at the end of the tunnel. I was looking forward to what I could do afterwards. It was the simple things like wearing clothes, wearing jeans that I wanted to wear rather than cutting them all in half. Yeah, it was just stuff like that I just knew would be so much easier. And then you just got the wardrobe, which has got tons, and I mean tons of Villa shirts in. Like, wait until you see how many Villa shirts I've got. Favourite one is probably You hold on, I'll grab. Cool. So yeah, you can tell I got too many Villa shirts when I'm struggling to get them out, but yeah, this is my favourite, Muller, 93, 94. Remember that one, Dan? I like the retro shirts, like when I go to Villa games and stuff, I tend to wear a lot of retro stuff. I've got a 1982 jacket in here somewhere.
Jude then explained to me how what I'd just seen him do, something as simple to you and I as picking a shirt from a wardrobe, would have been an impossible task for him pre-amputation.
Yeah, it's just simple things like that, like my leg would have been in the way. I wouldn't have been able to get to the wardrobe because of the physical position. And it also, as well, what it's hard to imagine is it would block my vision as well because of the position it was in. So a lot of the time I couldn't really see in front of me because my knee was literally like here. When I was bedbound at home, I was stuck in my room. I remember my family buying me some inspirational quote books. I remember flicking through it, and I think one of the first quotes that I read was, "The man who moves a mountain begins by taking away the small stones." And to me, that's stuck with me ever since because it just sums up everything I'm going through. Whether it's trying to get out the bed one day, sitting up, I've removed a small stone, like the small wins that you were talking about. Whether it's trying to desensitise my leg, that's a small win. Whether it's going to Villa Park in a seat, that's another stone I've removed from the mountain. And then comes the really big one, the amputation. I've removed the big one, I've got over that. The big one next is, can I use a prosthetic? And that's trying to be moved at the minute. The cerebral palsy, which I've had since birth, I've had multiple operations, so I've had like 10 or 11 operations, and one of the main reasons my body sort of said, at this one, I've had enough, get off me, and it reacted in the way that it did, so that's why it reacted. The cerebral palsy complicates things because when I go back to the first diagnosis of the complex regional pain syndrome, everyone thought it was something to do with my cerebral palsy, reacting differently because everyone that has cerebral palsy has a different journey. So everyone was looking for answers to do with the cerebral palsy and not the complex regional pain syndrome. They gave me some medication to help sort of relax me and sort of help take the pain away for the amputation. And yeah, the night before I was looking forward to it. I remember the nurses coming in asking me how I was, asking me lots of questions, and I was just relaxed, ready. I remember, what was I doing? I was watching some film of some sort on my MacBook. I remember ordering a takeaway, and yeah, just life was normal for me. They didn't tell me this at the time, but post amputation, when they got to know me, they were like, we were all questioning whether you knew what you were having done because of how relaxed you was. And I was like, yeah, well, I wasn't nervous at all because I just wanted it done and I wanted to see what the outcome was. The only thing that I was a little bit, I wouldn't say nervous, but I was questioning in my head was, I'd had plenty of operations in the past, and you wake up and you've got a cast on your leg, or you've got a cast on your arm, or you've got a scar on your arm. I never woke up with half a leg, so I didn't know what that was going to feel like. Yeah. It sounds weird, but I just didn't know. When I woke up, it felt no different. Literally, I felt like it was part of me. When looking back on that, I feel like that's because mentally I was so prepared and I knew I wanted it. So yeah, I really like this one. I like the colouring on it as well because just the signatures really like stand out, and like as soon as you walk in the room, it hits you. Some people like that, some people don't. But yeah, it's good, and that would definitely be taking pride of place in my new room.
Getting back to Villa Park was a big target for Jude. So how did he get on having to miss match days for so long?
You got to think half of this was COVID. A lot of people weren't going out of the house, so for the first year or so, none of the fans were going into grounds. We were all watching it from the TV. So for me, it was no different to everyone else. Yeah. As soon as that stopped and the world started to open up again, I just completely changed and wanted to do everything that you were doing and doing everything and going to the games. And that's when I started to really miss stuff. And then I got taken into hospital, and again couldn't go to the games, couldn't watch the games. So for the first sort of year or so, I sort of dealt with it because no one was going to the games. Whereas as soon as the world opened up, I really struggled and sort of wanted to get back out, and I tried to get back out. And I remember like wanting to go to college and do a media course, so I tried to explore that and tried to access that, but it just wasn't possible with my current leg position.
Once Jude found out that the Aston Villa first team were making a trip to the hospital he was staying at, he was determined to get down to the ward that they were visiting so he could have a meet and greet with Unai Emery's Aston Villa.
How are you? Yeah, good. Yeah. Okay? Yeah.
It's funny because it was the day after the World Cup final, and Luca Dean and Emi Buendia was next to each other, and they were all having jokes about France and Argentina, because obviously different countries, and Emi Buendia was saying that he was speaking to Emi Martinez on FaceTime all the time during the World Cup, so that was really good. Got some signed stuff from them, had some photos, some videos with them. I was singing Emi Buendia's chant and he liked that. It was funny. I was leaving the ward and then I saw the boss. Unai Emery comes in. I asked him, are you taking his team to Europe? And I got a thumbs up, so we'll see. We'll see if that comes true. So yeah, all really good surprise, and yeah, really good to see the Villa players, and yeah, been on good form since they met me, so taking credit for it. I struggle to do a lot of things in the kitchen purely because of the height difference between the kitchen surfaces and my wheelchair. I can stand up and do stuff, so I do sometimes get stuff like out the fridge and stuff, but majority of the time I have a lot of support in the kitchen from MASH and other carers, because like I say, it's not as adapted for me. When I'm at home, I'll have like a rise and fall surface, so the surface will come up and down and will adjust to my height and the family's height, so we can all cook either separately or together and learn to cook, which will be interesting. It's good, and yeah, just getting the support from where I need it really. When I went into hospital, I was 14, 15, I'm now 18. Now, during those 3 years, I was in hospital, so I've missed all of the growing up phase, so the stuff like learning to cook or going out by yourself, just independent things that 17, 18-year-olds do. I missed all of that like growing up phase, so I'm sort of relearning what to do again, because all of that time in hospital I missed. The most important thing post-operation in the first couple of days was managing the pain, and that was what really stopped, well, we think is what stopped the return of the complex regional pain, was managing the pain right after the operation. And then it's sort of doing the physio, doing the simple things like trying to mobilise. But for me, I'm just imagining this, but if you're having an amputation, you learn how to stand up again, you learn how to sit down and maybe mobilise. But for me, everything like that was new for me because I couldn't do it before. Yeah. So it was the stuff like sitting in a chair. Like I remember the first time I sat in the chair, and the feeling of sitting on my sofa was just so different because I'd never been in this flat or be able to sit on a sofa. So even doing stuff like this now, transferring into the sofa, here I am now. I can be able to watch the telly, I can relax on the sofa, and I remember sitting here on the sofa, I remember saying to my family, first time I sat on the sofa in about 3 or 4 years, and that sounds really strange, and for me that's the reality of it. Just little things. Great to be able to chill on the sofa with my mates, whether it's a play FIFA, have to be Aston Villa of course, and yeah, it's just good to be able to watch the football comfortably rather than having to change position all the time and adjust my view because my knee's in the way. For example, I can go to Villa games now, I can go to away games, and when I go on the coach, instead of being clamped into the wheelchair and my mate Harvey being on the other side of the coach, I can sit next to him and we can talk Villa all the way there and all the way back. Well, it depends if we've won on the way back, but so yeah, it's just little things like that you don't think about. Even going to the toilet at half time, like yeah, it seems small, but it's massive for me, like really massive, because it gives me the independence that an 18-year-old should have. started to go out. I started to get into stuff and started to go, like I would go around Birmingham and just walk around and stuff and drive around because I was just getting used to again being out and could do that. And I remember first game post amputation, first Villa game was I escaped from the ward. It was Villa v Wolves actually. It was a 1-1 draw at home and Bailey missed that sitter at the end, didn't he? Yeah. So yeah, that was my first game. I remember escaping from hospital.
You had your leg amputated on the 12th of December. By the 4th of January, you were at Villa Park.
Yeah.
Is that normal?
I'm an Aston, that's what I do. So we're doing a lot of work on my hip at the minute to try and get it as far down as possible because it's been contracted for so long. So now Mash is just doing some physio with me, trying to stretch all my hip and the remainder of my stump, and I do this 2 to 3 times a day, so all the muscles here will be stretching. Just different exercises to keep me mobile really while I'm in the chair, but also help me to try and get that goal of using a prosthetic. It's stretches like these, so this is what you call like short stretches, so these will impact sort of instantly, whereas the line on the front will be like a really long, prolonged stretch, which will probably really lengthen the muscle. Pre-amputation, I was told that I probably wouldn't be able to walk or use a prosthetic. Now in my head, I knew there was a slim chance that might be possible if I had my leg amputated. In the current situation I was pre-amputation, there was absolutely no way I was doing that. And post-amputation, my hip has come down a lot further than what we expected. So you got to think before it was all the way bent up my hip. So my hip is still very tight, but there's a lot more I can do with it now physio-wise, stretching, because it's not in the way. Yeah. So there is talk of me possibly using a prosthetic. We don't know in what shape or form, but the fact that 2 to 3 months after my operation, I'm sitting here talking to you about using a prosthetic, that's just mind-blowing for me because that was never in the picture a year ago. I was just so used to having been so dominant on the left leg. It's just really easy for me to adapt, and yeah, I'm a master at hopping now. So I seem to hop everywhere. Yeah, so if we come over here, I've got roughly my desk and then my desk chair. It's important as well for me to get out of my chair every now and again and change positions. So like the fact that getting on the sofa, getting into a different type of chair, that's really helpful for me in terms of my positional and posture. And again, something that I really struggled to do pre-amputation. Got my laptop. This is my work laptop. Got a personal one here. I'm really enjoying the work at the minute. First sort of role in sort of journalism and communication, so that's really good. And then I've got my microphone here. Looking to do some sort of radio stuff with local radio here, so that's why this is here, and yeah, going to test it out in the next few days to hopefully see what it sounds like on the radio. So yeah, this is where all the work happens, and yeah, this is where productive Jude Aston works. From having cerebral palsy, it's just always made me more determined to prove that I can do something. So if you go back to my journalism, I've been doing journalism since the age of 13 because I wanted to show to people that despite having the disability, I could still do something I love. And just little things like that. I think having the disability makes me a more determined person. I don't think I'd be the same person if I didn't have the disability. I always want to see if I can do that little extra, excuse the pun, step. And yeah, that's what I'm working towards. I want to try and use a prosthetic, how long that takes, whether that takes 2 months or 3 years. If I can use one, I can use one. I just want to try it and see what happens. And also just, I don't know how to phrase this, but enjoy life like an 18-year-old should, and experience what an 18-year-old should experience at this point in their life. I feel like a new man, to be honest, because it's given me a whole new life. So this here is what I'm working towards, and this has given me everything.